In my daily practice over the course of the last 6 months, I have woken up, meditated, whether or not that was 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I have continued to take a moment every morning to meet the day. And I feel like it's become increasingly important to keeping myself present and grounded. I think for most of my life, I didn't know what grounded really was. Like, I've always kind of been curious. And as an earth sign, people are like, oh, well, you're probably just naturally grounded. And I think a lot of my trauma as like a younger person had me living very much outside of my body, very much disassociated, very much like hanging out right here and not being like in my body. And I think once I kind of slowly have started to understand what it feels like to be in my body, I think I'm slowly starting to learn what it feels like to be like naturally grounded. And grounding is really important when you are kind of like diving into the spiritual and like diving into like what consciousness is, because it's really easy to like go into a tailspin, especially once you get into like the part of, spirituality that's like none of this is real. Um, that can be really abrasive to somebody who is like just kind of like learning that there is something other than the physical reality. If you immediately go into nothing is real, that can really like put you into a tailspin. And I think a lot of people consider it spiritual psychosis. And I don't have enough like credentials, I feel, to talk about that specifically. But I think grounding has increasingly become something that I'm slowly starting to learn over 15 years of practicing and diving into the metaphysical. So it's not something that comes naturally, I don't think, especially if you have any history of trauma or potentially like any neurodivergence. Like, it's just something that's a little bit like, for me, it's always been very like, I've never understood it like mentally or like in a thinking way. And so like I think part of what I want to talk about this week and part of the things that I've noticed in the past week really revolve around like meeting the moment and like being peaceful and like understanding that boredom is kind of just peace. Obviously, that's very generalized, and I'm just a person on the internet talking about my experience, so please take anything I say with a grain of salt. Um, but something I've found myself thinking yesterday it's finally getting to be warm here where I live, and by warm I mean 45 degrees and sunny, which feels great after a really cold winter. But I know a lot of people don't think that's warm. But, and so I was sitting on the porch reading a book in the sun, and I was kind of thinking to myself, I've been wanting to work towards a more peaceful life. I've been wanting to work towards like a more calm, I've been wanting to like work towards like nervous system healing and just like being calm and centered in my body. And I think that calming my nervous system down and really like nourishing myself when I am really like triggered, or like when my nervous system feels very frazzled, has been like the most helpful thing. And so I think a lot of people in this world, when everything is about quick stimulation, dopamine, like boom, like that's cool, next video, that's cool, next video, that's cool, next video. Like it's just like cyclical. And I think that when in the last, really since TikTok got banned, I've been really disinterested in scrolling. I had stopped Instagram scrolling maybe 2 months prior to me stopping really doing a lot of TikTok. I do go on every once in a while because it's better. It's like just kind of like a quick way to like reconnect with the world, I think I see in a little bit of a way. Um, but with no scrolling, I have a lot more time to just sit and do nothing. And I think I've found myself being like, I want to do something. I've got to be doing more. Like, there has to be something I need to be doing. And I think I forget that, like, when you scroll for 6 hours on a weekend, you're like, ugh, I didn't do anything today. I just scrolled. But if you just sit and stare at a wall for 6 hours, you would just be like bored out of your mind and probably start doing something else. Like, I don't think you would last 6 hours. Um, and so I've been questioning, like, this is like the end of this thought process, I guess. But like, I've been thinking, like, ugh, I feel like I'm not doing anything with my days because all I want to do is just like sit in the sun, like read books, like just like do some research on like philosophical stuff and just kind of like hang out. And I haven't really lived like that as an adult. Like, I feel like every moment of my day was like make money, pay my rent, like hang out with people, like do the social things. And then also like get home, scroll until you get hungry, eat something, and go to bed. And um, I think about a year ago, I was just like, I mean, I got really burnt out around 2 years ago and just kind of like kept going until I ran out of fucks to give altogether. But like I started to really focus on um, just truly being present and not, diving into like needing to do something at all times. Like, I was so tired and burnt out that I just like needed to not do anything. And I think the first step for me was to just scroll and like try to like do nothing, and that was like my solution for resting. And I think over time I've realized that that's not actually restful for myself, my soul, my nourishment, and also for my nervous system. Like, I was still getting that like frazzled dopamine scrolling fixation, like trance, and I wasn't feeling any better. But my circumstances have gone up and down throughout my life, and for some reason, in this moment where I have less than I've ever had, I have also found the most peace. Whether or not that was the purpose or the lesson, I'm not really sure. Um, but I've been like working towards a more peaceful, slow, intentional life. And I think I'm realizing in the moments when I find myself bored that I remind myself, like, this is the peace that you have been searching for, that you have been asking for, working towards. And I think it's like a different type of work than going to work, right? Like, when people say work on your shadow or work on yourself, it's not like going and showing up somewhere for 8 hours. It's like if you're washing the dishes and you break a glass and the voice inside of your head says, yells, or reacts in some like kind of like a violent anyway, really. Whether it says like, you're stupid, I can't believe you did that, or like, you're gonna be in trouble, like, that was, that was the last one of whatever, like, whatever it is, right? Like, it's catching those moments, whatever those circumstances are, and sitting with yourself in that and be like, where is that voice coming from? Is it a voice from the past? Is it a voice that I have created? Is it my intuition? And oftentimes, I think, as far as like my journey with my intuition, and I'm still learning this, but intuition is never going to feel like it's like time sensitive. Like, there is time sensitive stuff, but it's very much more of like, do it now, but also like, nothing's gonna happen if you don't. Like, you might just miss that specific trail, right? Like, if life is just like walking on like a hiking trail, and there's a moment where it's like, okay, turn left here, and you're like, just ignore it or don't want to, then you keep going straight. And then maybe there's a couple years go by, and then you see a similar sign or get a similar intuitive hit that's like, hey, go left. And that time you can either choose or not choose. Like, if your intuition is saying like, this is the only way, it's probably not your intuition, and it's probably like a voice, either external or something that somebody told you once that now you have reaffirmed within yourself. I never feel like what I'm saying actually makes sense, so whatever. But it's interesting too, because in this, for me, in finding this like boredom in doing nothing, and finding like the peace in doing very little, and living very intentionally, and just inherently, doing the things that I need to do to just live, like keeping my house clean, sitting in the sun, reading, writing, making art, doing all these things outside of work that bring me peace, and focusing on peace as the main element that I'm trying to cultivate in my life, has created this sensation of feeling like I'm not doing enough, which is an external societal pressure that you need to be earning money at all seconds of the day in order to be a good human. I feel like I could be doing more most of the time, and instead of feeling shame for either not having the energy or feeling so at peace that I don't want to, like, if I'm feeling very peaceful writing or reading or making art, the immediate thought is to commodify it. And I know I've talked about the fact that I don't want to commodify anything, and I think part of that comes from having ran my art business for the last 10 years, and having had every moment that I had to make art intentionally come from a place of, this needs to be good enough to sell, like, this needs to make me money, this needs to pay the bills. And I see wild success with artists, and I'm so happy that people can find success. And also, it's very stressful to have everything rely on a creative act, and it stresses the creative act in a way where it's like, the creativity isn't actually what's driving the art, it's the commodification. And it's like, if I make a drawing and I'm like, oh my god, I could make this into stickers, or like, I could make this into blah blah blah, I have to like stop myself and be like, pause. Like, I am looking for a peaceful, intentional life, and that does not include everything I make becoming something sellable. And that includes like my time. Like if I want to write a book for the pure intention of just writing a book because I'm having fun with it, I don't want to have to think about, you know, how to write it so that other people will like it, or, you know, how to, you know, like I love listening to tips on like how to write, but a lot of writing advice that I found is very much geared towards making it sellable, making it commercial, which is what most people want to do with their, you know, their writing, just as with art. And I don't think that where I'm at in my journey right now includes that. I think I want to just inherently make art because the expression of making it is what is fueling me. And I also think that in making art and not actively selling it or actively putting it out for anyone to see, or just sitting and reading, or just sitting in the sun and like gardening, like all of these acts are creative and they're nourishing me. And I think I'm in this moment where that's all I want, that's all I need in my life. And I feel very selfish in that. I think probably because there's that external pressure to always be selling or always be making something to be sold, or, you know, making a test product so you can send it to a manufacturer so that you can make 1,000,000 of them so you can sell 1,000,000 things for $2 each and make $1 profit, and then you make $1,000,000. And it's just, it's exhausting and I don't want any part of it. And you know, I want to go to bed and I want to lucid dream. I want to meditate. Like I want to live in this world in a peaceful way. And I also want to be connected to the spiritual world. And kind of like something I've been experiencing this week is I've been looking back because I've been experiencing similar feelings that I can only relate to a certain period of time in my life. And so I've been looking back at that time and like what things were changing, what things were happening. And I made a very conscious choice 10 years ago to want to have one foot in each world. And I didn't really know what that meant, but I knew that I wanted it. And at that time, I had already been, you know, studying consciousness and sacred geometry and like spiritual, like different religions and different spiritual practices for probably about 3 or 4 years at that time. And was kind of like experiencing a really rapid consciousness shift, and it started to like freak me out, how like magically my life was fitting together, which is funny. You don't really think of that being a scary thing, but it was like I couldn't go longer than like 30 minutes without a synchronicity, or without, you know, somebody referencing something that somebody said 30 minutes ago, or I would say I really want this and somebody would come up and offer it to me. Like it was really intense and I didn't know how to handle it. And a lot of like bigger shifts happened to me as well. And then in that shift, I was like, I want to live with one foot in each world. I want to hold both the spiritual world and the physical world at the same time. I want to know what it is to experience both and be able to bounce back and forth between them and to live with one foot in each. And 10 years later, and a lot of life later, I find myself in a position where I am experiencing lucid dreaming. I'm experiencing like a lot of consciousness, and I'm like understanding concepts that I was learning about back then. And like, I went back and actually looked at a couple of like pictures from that time period, and just like seeing different things in the photos that I'm looking around, and being like, oh my gosh, I've had that for 10 years, or like, oh, I got that 10 years ago, or that's been like, that's I've moved so many times, like so many times. I like basically traveled on the road for years, month, 2 months in one place and then on to the next. And so some of these things have literally traveled with me for the past 10 years. And just thinking about that is kind of wild. And I think part of it, I think part of it is that I'm finally in a place where I understand what I meant 10 years ago when I said that I wanted to live with one foot in each world. And this is the symbology of why I chose the name Crow. Because I felt like at the 10 years ago, I felt like I was having conversations with crows, and I read like, there was like an animal spirit book um, where I was reading about like the different energies that different animals can teach in kind of like an animistic traditional way, where, if there is a belief that there is anything out there, that if we as humans are animate, then why not also the other things that are of this earth, like trees, rocks, animals? Like why would it be possible that we're the only ones that have thoughts and feelings? And whether or not we can interact with them or not is, another conversation. But I personally do feel like if I ask a tree for a message, I will receive some sort of guidance or interaction, whether or not that's sound, a picture, somebody in conversation, an hour later, where I just have a feeling where I like think of that tree when I'm interacting with this person, and realize that potentially what they're saying is the message that was to be coming across. And I think after having, worked with this energy for the last 10 years and really diving in, I think the way that I'm looking at, one foot in each world is kind of like holding what some people call like the paradox of life. Like there is everything that we can't see and everything that we can see, and how can we hold both of these things at the same time? Like how can we hold these like fundamental spiritual concepts and also hold the fact that like I do still need to work in order to pay my bills? Like I do need my job in order to live in society, but also like holding the truth that like the sun and the moon are celestial energies, and they affect me on a daily basis. And it's all about how I am interacting with my body, and how, my body and my energy is interacting with the world around me. And I guess this is another very like spiritual episode. Like I don't know how to explain this concept in any other way. Lastly, I want to just say like the way that I've been feeling has made me feel like I'm not doing enough. I could be doing more. I could be helping people. I could be, blah, 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 blah. But I'm really in a moment right now, and I'm just, all the messages that I'm getting are like, just keep cruising. I feel like I'm on a highway and I have it on my car on cruise control, and I'm just kind of like watching the scenery as I move throughout my life. And I'm like finding peace in doing nothing. And I don't know how much longer that's gonna last, but I do know that one thing is that everything is temporary and change is the only constant. And instead of worrying that I'm not doing enough, I'm going to continue to sit in boredom and find peace, and sit in meditation and find answers and messages, and sit on my porch and photosynthesize while the spring is making its way to my shores. So I think I want to thank you for watching if you have watched all the way through. This is episode 13, I think. And I'm getting very little traction, and I love that, and I'm okay with that because I am making these videos in an effort to practice being seen, to practice being vulnerable, and it is giving me confidence. And I don't know what the purpose is long term for these videos or this podcast, but it was something that I was, encouraged by my intuition to start. So I did. And I never know how long a project will happen for, but I'm enjoying this. And until I really feel like I'm just repeating the same concepts over and over and over, I'll probably keep doing this. And it's been a really good practice to just like show up for myself every week. So thank you for being a part of that if you are here for that. And please like and subscribe if you have made it this far. And share with a friend if you feel. I know that a lot of these concepts are me talking about myself, but I'm hoping that within that, it really can become like a reflection for anyone else going through a similar thing, or hearing me process from week to week these different concepts can help someone else kind of like go through a similar journey. So I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. And if it's sunny, please go and enjoy the sun, because after a long, dark winter, I definitely know that the first, false spring can really cure a lot of this like anguish, or just like sitting in like anger or anything like that. So I hope you have a beautiful week, and I will see you next time.